Noob School. All right, welcome back to Noob School. John Sterling here. I've got an old friend, dear friend, Burton Vance. Burton, welcome to the podcast.
It's great to be here, John. Great to be here. Great to see you.
Guys, great to see you. We've been trying to get you here really since we started the podcast. So
yeah, and I appreciate that.
Today's the day.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Once I saw Sam out and on it, I thought, okay,
right,
I can certainly do that.
Sam was on it, and of course he wore his suit with the red tie.
Well, he's ready for court.
Yeah, he's ready for court.
Yeah.
So I met Burton, I don't want to say how many years ago, but it was maybe 30 years ago. And Burton went to Davidson with my good friend from Greenville. You mentioned Sam Alton. And so I started to get to know some of Sam's good friends from Davidson. And it always made me wish I'd have gone to Davidson because I really loved meeting you and Tom Young and, of course, love Sam and some of the other people. But it's kind of to me, it's a good opening to the idea for the Noob School folks that if you hang around good people or bad people or people who you aspire to be like, you can't help but start to move in that direction.
It's certainly helpful.
And vice versa.
That's right.
If you're hanging around the ne'er-do-wells, then you're kind of going to move in that direction. So hanging out with you and Tom and Sam was good for me back then. It got me thinking differently. So I'm glad we've stayed friends all through these years. And you've had a great career, and I'd just like to kind of go through it for the benefit of the Noob Schoolers, and also talk about along the way, little sales events that happened and things you learned that they might be able to learn from.
Okay.
So starting out, you're from Winston-Salem?
I'm from Winston-Salem.
Winston-Salem.
Just up the highway there. And
Yeah.
a town I think has a lot of similar attributes to Greenville.
Okay.
And very livable.
About the same size?
About the same size.
And you recently moved back?
Right. So I grew up in Winston-Salem, went to Davidson. Your comment about intentionally hanging out with some people you think that might be a little better influences than not, that was part of my decision making and where to go to college.
Right.
Because a lot of, back in the day, it's certainly not like this now, but back in my day, you could just about default to go to Chapel Hill. And I was a huge North Carolina Chapel Hill basketball fan, sports fan. But I just didn't trust myself to go to that big school environment at 18 years old. And so I intentionally was trying to pick a smaller school where I would have kind of forced on me better mentors and a better environment for me to focus and do as well as I could. So that was part of it. So growing up in Winston-Salem, went to Davidson College, and then went to law school at Chapel. Got my Chapel Hill experience with 3 years of law school.
Did you go hog wild when you went to law school?
Well, it was funny, my father was an attorney, and he said, those are not your 3 years to go to Chapel Hill and have fun.
Right.
Those would have been your first 4 years.
Yeah.
But I had enough fun and had some very good friends there.
Yeah.
And also was lucky that my 3 years of law school were Michael Jordan's 3 years at Chapel Hill. So I was pretty lucky in that regard.
Wow. I remember.
But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Davidson a lot. Learned a lot, and enjoyed Chapel Hill a lot.
Well, I don't know what Davidson's like today, but I remember back then talking to Sam about it, and he would just study, and read. And I was a Citadel, and I wasn't studying that much, I can tell you. And I was like, Sam, why are you doing all that? And he goes, well, you kind of have to. He goes, in our fraternity, if you don't make an A or a B average, then you kind of look down upon.
Yeah, there was that, and the environment was very conducive to it. Now, you were playing sports, you were playing basketball at Citadel, so you had and it was Citadel, so you had your forms of discipline as well, serious forms of it. Ours was studying, and it was nice, there wasn't that much else to do, but it was also just what everyone was doing. So
you had that one little tiny bar on campus.
Yeah, there was one little tiny bar which didn't really qualify as a bar.
Yeah.
But they served beer. But that was what was good for me. I think it was good for my friends like Sam. Is Sunday night to Thursday, it was just a migration after dinner to the library, and that became the social scene. But you actually got some work done. Yeah. And then you had your fun on the weekends.
Yeah. But, well, I just think it's a great thing. I don't want to gloss over it. That, you made that decision because you wanted your life you wanted to have more options, I would think, you know,
Right.
to take different kinds of jobs, or maybe you've met different kind of people you can network with later. You said, I'm going to go to a harder place that's less fun in order to have a better life later.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And trying to look yourself in the mirror and say, you know, how much, I had to be honest with myself. How much discipline
Right.
as a high school senior do I think I have on my own?
Yeah.
And I didn't have a very high confidence level in
I
that.
was, I was the same way, and that's a decision I made for the same reason. I don't think I could have trusted myself at Davidson either. I mean, I knew I'd worked hard to play basketball, and I thought if I go to something other than the Citadel,
Right.
how can I keep that up?
Right.
Because you're going to want to go and, you know, have all the fun.
That's right, and it's a challenge. And people, those larger schools provide a great education, but it's just you have to search for it and have to work a little harder on your own.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do it, and my children have done it. But I've loved the Davidson experience.
Yeah. So this is the part where I think our friendship picks up, is after law school. I think when we met and we started playing golf.
That's right.
You went to work for a big firm, as I recall, in Atlanta.
It was about a medium-sized firm.
Medium, okay.
But what I liked about it was growing quickly, and it was managed by younger partners.
Yeah.
So younger at the time would have been in their 40s.
Yeah.
And they were growing the firm, and it was pretty big. It got to be over 100 lawyers. But when I joined it, it was much smaller, but it was entrepreneurial,
Yeah.
and everyone worked hard, but also they played pretty hard too. So that was a great environment for young attorneys, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. But ultimately, I made partner there. I worked there for 8 years.
Wow.
But ultimately, I was a litigator, as Sam is, and ultimately you get to that kind of end of you kind of do the grunt work and you go through the associate work and get to that point where, well, this is going to be the rest of my life doing this every day. And I, at that point, kind of looked at myself in the mirror again and said, this is not really my personality to be a litigator. And that leads to the sales topic. Is I found myself, and I find myself to be a lot more conciliatory than most litigators are on a daily basis. And so I enjoyed the competitive part of it. I enjoyed getting into a courtroom or an arbitration whenever you did get there, but I didn't enjoy the everyday fighting over minutia and for the sake of the fight. I don't mind fighting or arguing about something that I thought was, what I thought was worthwhile, but it was just not how I viewed myself living every day.
And when you say litigator, that means you're arguing the case on behalf of a business against someone that's suing them?
Well, it's a court. You're doing trial work.
Trial work.
Trial work, right.
For businesses?
Ours was for businesses.
Okay.
But I mean, litigation is basically going into a courtroom and
Okay.
arguing, filing suit against each other, or
Yeah.
defending, So
Okay.
it's basically courtroom work, trial work, and so our firm did mostly business litigation, and that's partly how I morphed into the role that I eventually took.
Yeah.
We did some work for brokerage firms,
Okay.
investment brokerage firms.
So you, Davidson, UNC Law School, and then worked for a up-and-coming good law firm in Atlanta for businesses.
Right.
And then I remember, you might not remember, but I remember talking to you when you started to think about switching. And you were like basically saying, that you were kind of getting frustrated with some of the details, as you mentioned, of the litigation work.
Right.
And also that you really liked what Tom Young was doing.
That's right. That's right. So
Our friend
I
Tom.
would not be in this. I would not have the career that I've had.
Yeah.
However you want to characterize it, had it not been for Tom Young,
Yeah.
our mutual friend.
Yeah.
So when I graduated from law school, Tom Young happens to be a cousin, and he was graduating from Darden Business School at the same time, and moving coincidentally to Atlanta. So we found out about that. Tom had been at Davidson also, and proposed we be roommates for the first few years in Atlanta. And we did that. So my first few years in Atlanta as a young attorney, I was doing my job, and he was a salesperson for what is now First Boston or Credit Suisse, or was Credit Suisse. It was called First Boston. And he was an equity salesperson. And I had no idea it basically they called it institutional sales. I thought he was selling janitorial supplies. I think I told you, but I had no idea what that was.
Right.
And equity sales, selling research, investment research to money managers, professional money managers. So the institution was the professional money manager. That was the institution. Not a janitorial supply. But he started that in Atlanta, and his clients were money managers and foundations and such in the Southeast. And I got a courtside view of his job, and he got a courtside view of my job. And he wasn't really trying. I don't think he saw anything in what I was doing to make him think about going to law school, but I sure enjoyed seeing what he was doing and how much he enjoyed it, the relationship part of it, the flexibility of schedule that he had, but mostly it was his pure enjoyment of it and the relationships. And coincidentally, John, I've thought about this a lot, but to this day, there's several very good friends of mine in Atlanta that I only know because they were clients of Tom's, and Tom would pull me along every once in a while for a golf game or for a dinner, and I would go and meet these guys and girls, and they are some of those people are still close friends of mine. It just reinforced how much I enjoyed that relationship part of what his job was versus what I was doing.
Yeah, everyone's working together.
There was a lot more of a constructive view of things, right?
And so you eventually found your way into that business.
I did. I got very lucky, and that's one message that I have for anyone is timing is everything. It's a little harder when you're in the throes of trying to get a job or trying to rescue yourself from being laid off, and it sounds easy to say, well, just be patient. Timing is everything. You never know when something will come along, but timing really is everything. And so I was trying to interview into that industry, and most of the jobs were in New York. And I had, wife and 2 small children in Atlanta, wife from Atlanta, and none of us were very interested in moving to New York on a maybe this will work, maybe it won't work on an experiment. So I really couldn't interview for New York jobs, which is where most of them are. And so I got very fortunate that the Atlanta brokerage firm Robinson Humphrey, which was the regional firm in Atlanta at the time, had an institutional equity business. And I was able to get an interview. And my quick story on timing is that I went in and Tom helped me with that as well. Tom knew who the manager was of that office and gave me a little pep talk about it. And I walked in, and he thought I was an interesting candidate as an attorney. He did understand that litigation is sales, as Sam will tell you. I didn't have pure computer sales or pharmaceutical sales experience or research sales, but I sure had learned how to sell as a litigator, or tried to. And so he understood that. But when we finished talking, he said, well, if you'll talk to a few more people, I just got a call from New York, because Robinson Humphrey was owned by Smith Barney at the time. And I've just been told this morning to grow our business. All right, so I liked that. I talked to a few more people. They took mercy on me and hired me. Okay. About a month after that, or 2 months after that, I'm in Atlanta at a cocktail party, and one of my very good friends walked up to me. He was a commercial real estate person who was not that happy in his job. He said, I heard you've left the law and you're going to work for Robinson Humphrey. And I said, yes, that's right. I'm excited about it. He said, how did you get that job? And I said, well, he said, who did so-and-so hire you? I said, yes, he did. I'm going to work in his department. I interviewed with them 3-4 months ago, and there wasn't a job. He didn't have a job. And I just kind of laughed. I said, well, that's right. There wasn't a job 3 months ago. I was lucky, and this friend of mine would have made a very good equity research salesperson. He probably would have gotten that job, but I happened to be in there the day that the guy had gotten the call to grow the business. And I told my friend, I said, unfortunately, you were there on the wrong day. But that happens a lot.
It does.
And so I was timing's everything, luck can really come into play a
Yeah.
lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah, and we tell people, that person that hired you, what happened from 90 days before is something changed.
That's exactly
Like
right.
he was telling the truth here, and something changed. So we tell people, at the very least, every 90 days, if there's something you want, keep trying.
No
Just
question.
keep trying because, the world can change.
The world can definitely change.
Yeah. And we also tell them, pretend like the first conversation never happened. Just
Right.
pop back in like, hey, Burton, I was just giving you a call. Wondered,
No, absolutely.
not like I called you 90 days ago, don't remind them.
That's right.
We're in a new world now.
In a new world, and remember, whoever you're approaching in a sale, they're very busy.
Yeah.
It's all, they have a lot on their plate. Sometimes it's hard to remind yourself that you're not the most important thing on their mind every day. So more reason to go back in.
Yeah.
And, until they tell you, stop.
Never.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, never.
Yeah.
No, you very, very rarely do you get that.
That's right.
But you're right. I think most people,
More often, John, you get, thank you for coming back in.
yeah.
Thank
We
you. Thank you for
appreciate it.
calling me again, right?
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Appreciate you trying. Yeah, I agree. Most people give up too quickly, and they think they have ESP, that Burton's never going to buy from me.
That's right.
I saw a funny look on his face. So, going from partner at this law firm to
Right.
brand new sales guy,
Yeah.
how was that transition?
It was not as daunting as it sounded to other people, and as it is to me as I look back on it, or risky, or why the heck did I do it?
Yeah.
Other people thought that took a lot of nerve. You gave up a law partnership to do this that you've never done before.
Yeah.
I had I really was not thrilled with what I was doing. I could have kept doing it, and then I would have been okay.
Right.
I think I would have been okay. I probably wouldn't have been very good because I just didn't really enjoy it. So I probably wouldn't have been a very good attorney over time, but I might have been okay. But I had so much confidence probably in watching Tom and how much he enjoyed it that I thought I would enjoy this.
Yeah.
That and I worked around some very good people. And so it was not as I wasn't nervous about it. But it motivated me. I'll say that it was appropriate motivation in making this switch. And people say, "Are you sure you know what you're doing?"
Yeah.
That was good motivation to work really hard.
Yeah.
So I had, as an example, I had to take. We all have to be licensed, so I had to take a Series 7 exam, and we studied as a training program. We went to New York under Smith Barney, and all the new hires took the Series 7, and if you didn't, the word was if you didn't pass it, they didn't think very much of you, and you might lose your job. And so the motivation was I wasn't going to flunk a Series 7, and having given up a law partnership and wife and two
Yeah.
small children and
Yeah.
all of that. So I studied pretty hard for that, and everyone, when we passed and you got a score, and everyone, they were like, well, you overstudied, but I wasn't going to not
Yeah.
pass it.
Right.
So and along the way, that's been motivation. for me.
Yeah. I think part of the highlight from your story so far is you had a model for what you wanted.
I did.
In Tom.
I did.
You cousin, you knew him, roommate, the whole thing. You got to see him from the inside, like how it was, what that job was like, and what the rewards were, and
Right.
all that kind of thing. And so then you figured out a way to get it. And I think most of the time, let's just say there's a large swath of people that are generally unhappy in their work. They don't really know what would make them happy.
Right.
And that should be their number one goal.
That's right.
What can
agree
I
with that.
do that will make me happy?
Well, and if you're happy and you enjoy it, it's cliche-ish, but you will be successful.
Yes.
But you can't force something you have to force certain things, and no one likes getting up at 5 a.m. if that's part of it. But, you basically have to really enjoy it,
Right.
and you'll be happy. And on that Tom Young, as I think about it, the Tom Young influence, it can be someone within your company as well. The importance of having a mentor, having someone that you watch. So, I was thinking about some of the things that I think are very important in sales. Is I could take. Tom Young was extremely successful. I'm no Tom Young, but I have certain attributes that I try to do that are different. And I try to tell young salespeople, watch other people, ask for help. Not enough people ask for help. I wish I'd asked for more help. It's really hard to ask for help, but really ask for help. But watch other salespeople around you that are successful, and you don't have to copy them, because you're going to find there's certain aspects of their routine that you don't like. But just try to pick what you think are the best parts, and then incorporate your own personality and be yourself. But take those best parts, best practices, and create a hybrid. And say, I really love what they do about that, and then use your own personality and be yourself and be true to yourself. And to me, that can be very successful.
Yeah, I agree. You can find yourself a mentor, and by asking questions, I'll tell you this: I've got so many sales reps that I've worked with in the past. People I just love that I recruited from school that are doing their own thing now, and the people that are most likely to often call me and ask me a question, like I've got a compensation question, or I've got a selling my business question, or whatever, they're the ones that are doing the best.
Right.
You would think it's the last person who'd think they got to call me to get an answer, but they're the ones most likely to call and say, and he might be calling 7 people to get this free feedback that then they can process and make a decision.
That's why they're doing the best.
Yeah.
And Ted Lasso is a great TV show. I don't know if you watch it.
I've seen it,
It's a fabulous show, and one of the most popular episodes, and it's all over Instagram all the time now, is a scene where he's throwing darts in a bar, and he quotes Walt Whitman, and the quote is basically, "Be curious, not judgmental." And the whole point is, ask questions. Don't just immediately judge someone. Don't judge a situation. Ask questions about it. Find out more before you make up your mind. And if you do, you're going to be more prepared. You're going to be more, you'll be more enlightened, and you're not going to step into it. And in that scene, it's so strong, but it relates to sales. And ask questions. Don't just like you mentioned the conclusion. They're not. If they have ESP, he's not going to buy from them. Ask questions. Be inquisitive. Find out about what the needs are of the client. What do they need? What do they want? And like you said, and as a salesperson, ask questions of mentors and other people, like the people that are calling you.
Yeah.
So, but I love that phrase about be curious, not judgmental.
Yeah. I know. I was watching one of the specials on Kobe Bryant, or maybe it was Michael Jordan special. It was one of them. But Michael became a mentor to Kobe when he was like 17.
Right.
And said, "Hey, anything you want, just let me know." Kind of opened the door, gave him his cell phone number, and he said he would get questions every day, 5-6 questions a day.
Yeah, amazing.
How do you do this? Why'd you do that? How do you guard this guy?
Right.
And he just picked his brain clean. And within a couple years, he was right there.
Right.
And that was not from raw talent.
Right.
He learned. It's amazing.
Well, you heard that a lot in golf. People asking Nicklaus how he plays Augusta, and now people ask Tiger. And some of those people don't give advice to everyone, but you hear the biggest disappointment is, and this is something I think for young people, if someone's offering, take them up on it.
Yeah. And you don't have to do what they say.
No, you don't have to do it, but take that input and filter it, and put that into your own, process.
When I was coaching my kids when they were younger, I was always preface it by, just hear me out. You don't have to do this.
Right.
This is just my feedback for you.
Right.
Do what you want.
That's
and
good
then
that you do that.
Okay.
Maybe I'll listen.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Right.
But if I was trying to tell them what to do, what happened.
Oh, yeah.
They wouldn't deal with that.
That's right.
So you obviously made the transition, and then you had a long, successful career with Robinson Humphrey, which became SunTrust, which became Truist, right?
That's exactly right. Robinson Humphrey was owned by Smith Barney, and we were the regional firm, like a Raymond James or Alex Brown, someone like that. And then SunTrust bought us in 2000, which was a very good fit. It wasn't smooth like this, but it was, different. And the financial crisis actually helped our business because the bank, as all the banks found, they couldn't make easy money or the easier money off spread. Interest rate spreads tightened. They looked for fee income business, and so that was our business. So they really invested starting in 2010 in our business.
Okay.
And so SunTrust has grown a very good capital markets business. And then just before COVID, SunTrust and BB&T merged to form. They had to come up with a new headquarters, Charlotte, and come up with a new name. So it was kind of like a Verizon or something like Accenture. So Truist is the bank.
Truist.
Right.
And so you retired from that business after how many years?
29 years, yeah.
And what was your role at that time?
At that time, I was a titled managing director, but I was covering, so my sales territory, we do it regionally, and it was Boston, and money managers in Boston, which is a tremendous region with a lot of very smart and large money managers.
Yeah.
So I was able to not purely commute, but I was able to live, and a lot of outsiders in our industry, but outside of SunTrust, they thought I had the best job in the country, that I could live in Atlanta with my family, very livable, sane, humane way to live.
Yeah.
But then I could just fly to Boston very easily on Delta and cover the best investment market in the country.
Wow.
And then get back on the plane a couple of days later and fly home and be at a lacrosse game and have the weekend. So, and would not do that every week, but do it once or twice a month.
Yeah.
And so when I left, I had 29 years covering Boston money managers. And the nice thing is you start covering whoever you can cover at a large account, and there might be some young people that you are young too, and then as you grow in your career, they're growing in their career.
Yeah.
And so even 29 years later, some of my best friends are at the top of their game at those accounts, and they manage a lot of money.
Yeah.
And, so it's a really interesting, rewarding relationship business.
That's great. That's great. And then the people that are coming into the firm, what kind of general sales training do they get?
It depends on what the role is, and if they're going to be a salesperson like me, they'll get training internally with us. Might have some outside sales influence. Mostly, it's just almost apprenticeship.
Okay.
On the ground.
You're going to work with Burton kind of thing? Okay.
Right, and you shadow and you watch and learn, and don't get too involved with clients for a while. Get to know so our job, John, is to understand our research of public companies, which at SunTrust was about 800, 900. I'm now at D.A. Davidson. It's about 500 public companies, and my job is to understand that research enough to filter it and relay it to the client. Understand the client well enough to know what of that research they'd be most interested in their process of managing money, which stocks would be appropriate for their style. And then if they really get interested, get our research analyst who produces the research, and they're the experts. So I'm a bit of a filter, liaison, so to speak, between the research and the client. Yeah. And so the young person would come in and really dig in and get to know the research the best they can. Yeah. Start to get to know their client base. We'd laugh a little bit, cut their teeth on a smaller client that they can't hurt themselves too bad, something like that. Which I've done plenty of times.
Yeah, yeah. And then just so I understand. These money managers in Boston would decide they wanted to pay your firm a fee to get this research?
Right.
Like a subscription fee kind of thing?
It's kind of like that. Well, what they really do, the main way they pay is if a large money manager is going to buy a position in a stock, they're buying a lot of stock. They have to trade that stock through a brokerage firm, broker-dealer. They can't just go directly to the company and get the stock. So they buy the stock through a broker-dealer like Truist. Okay. And so if it's a large money manager, if they're buying NVIDIA, my largest client owns 150 million shares of NVIDIA. Whoa. And so they have to buy that through a brokerage firm. Yeah. So they will buy, and they'll pay a commission as they trade. Yeah. So that's the first way they pay, is they just trade with our trading desk. Yeah. And they may trade with the Goldman Sachs trading desk. Yeah. And so we hope they trade with our desk, and that's partially how they pay for my service and the research. Okay. Or my expertise, so to speak. But then the other way, another firm may say, we'll just write you a check. We think it's worth X, and we'll write you a check for it.
And
So
then
there's several
we'll
ways to
trade
do it.
wherever we want to trade.
We'll trade wherever we get best
Yeah.
execution
Okay.
or whatever. But the trading's kind of an interesting aspect of it.
Yeah.
And we like that part of the business. But one thing I like about this role as well, when you think about sales, is, and you know different industries. There's in this role, I'm fighting over a piece of a pie. Okay, so our client has a pie of business they're going to give to Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, D.A. Davidson, Truist, Raymond James. It's not an all or nothing,
Yeah.
as in like the attorney role. Like when we think about our friend Sam Alton, you know, he's trying to get a piece of litigation from a client to the exclusion of all the other litigators
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
But I'm fighting over market share, and that's fun because it's very competitive. You know, I want my piece of the pie to grow and be bigger than my friend over at Raymond James, but we can still be friendly competitors. And there's not an incentive for me, because it's a relationship business where our clients have a relationship with me. They have one with the Raymond James person, with the Goldman Sachs salesperson. I want to be the better. I want them to like me more. But it does me no good to badmouth the Raymond James salesperson.
Yeah.
Even if it was my personality, which hopefully it wouldn't be. The last thing a client that does business with both of us wants to hear
Yeah.
is me say something bad about that. So it's there are a lot of sales roles like that where you're fighting for some market share, and it's important to remember, you know, the client, just fight for yourself.
Yeah.
And fight for your product and represent your product well.
Yeah.
You don't have to get down in the, people will do it.
Yeah. I've never seen that work. You know, where you
Yeah,
point
I haven't
out
either.
how bad your competitor
No.
is. It's just
And
people
even in
immediately-
Sam's world, and Sam would never do it,
Yeah.
but you have more incentive, and I've seen it in the city of Atlanta where, you're just incented because if it's an all or nothing sale.
Yeah.
And so I've seen where if someone says, oh, well, what about that attorney? He seems like a good guy. Well, the first reaction is no, because you just don't want them running over there,
Yeah.
to that firm. So I've seen that in action. But in this business, I've enjoyed this industry where you're fighting for share.
Yeah, that's cool. That's great.
It's a little different.
Now, has artificial intelligence changed your job
It's
at all?
not changing my job. It sure is a hot topic, and
Yeah.
has been for a while.
Yeah.
And now these stocks are on these huge, anything with AI attached to them.
Yeah.
In the actual production of the research and researching the companies, there's a lot of discussion on how that might enhance it
Yeah.
or facilitate it or make it a little more efficient for a research analyst, in crunching numbers and research models and things like that. I can see where there's a role for it, but not where it's helping me understand how a client thinks.
Yeah. What about social media?
Yeah, social media on a firm-wide basis, not on an individual basis. I think the wealth managers, which is not what I do, I think they use that pretty effectively. And I think on a firm basis, our firm uses it, D.A. Davidson, and they put out press releases on hires. And I know Truist uses it effectively, but not on an
Not needed for your
individual
job.
basis, right?
Okay. All right. Do you have any specific sales people that you follow or any training that you've gotten that's been particularly interesting?
Yeah, I think what has helped me is the just trying to adopt best practices from different people.
Okay.
Not one person that I would say. I mean, Tom was a huge influence for me, and he's a mentor, and in a lot of respects, if I have an ability to interact with a stranger, I've learned a lot of it from him.
He's amazing.
He is,
Yeah.
and some of that's just innate, and
Yeah.
some of it is learned, and some of it is in you. I would say that to young people. Sales to me can be a misnomer.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I didn't want to be a salesperson.
Yeah.
When I got out of college, I didn't want to be a salesperson.
Yeah.
I didn't realize as a litigator I was a salesperson, and so I think
I would a better word.
I'd encourage young people that are thinking about don't get spooked or put off by the word sales.
Yeah.
It's not all used car, to use a
Right.
bad cliche,
Yeah.
used car sales or whatever, pushy, selling something to somebody at night on the phone. it's an engagement, and it's a relation. Depending, sales can mean a lot of different things depending on what you're selling, what the product is, who the client base is, and it's a relationship. And it's very cliche-ish, but it's if you enjoy relationships and enjoy getting to know people and networking a little bit, that's what it is.
Yeah. I agree with you. I've been thinking about trying to come up with a better word than sales, because it does immediately, you think Tommy boy, used car salesman. You're like, I don't want to do that. I tell young people, if you want to go into business, this is a good way to enter.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be a career salesperson or a career sales manager. You can do anything you want, but you can enter this way.
That's right.
And what do businesses do? They sell stuff to people.
Right.
So you might as well get in there.
Well, it's an important part of the other thing I like to think about is within an organization, and I talk to my children about this, within an organization, what is important within that organization? Some things are more important than others. Some areas are necessary. They're cost centers, or they're necessary, and that might be very important. Human resources may be one of the most important areas of an organization. But then there may be another one that, as you're there, you're evaluating and you look and you're like, that group doesn't seem to be very important or very viewed as very important. I might want to shy away from that unless I really love it. But sales is important to every organization.
Yeah.
You're bringing in revenue.
Yeah.
So revenue's generally important.
You need the money.
Yeah, need the money. But on that thought about, is there any salesperson, I would say I have learned this, and I wasn't very good at it, but I think it's important to look for mentors, but also look around an organization at different areas and take an interest in different areas within an organization, and not just be tunnel vision in your sales role, in your sales department with your sales product, because you never know when you might want to move within the organization, and it's sure helpful. It makes you a better salesperson to know more about the organization than just your narrow sales department.
Internal selling, right?
Yes, do some internal selling and networking, and from that, and I've had some personal experience where if you start in a sales role, you have a sales manager. You're going to have a sales manager, and that sales manager is going to have a manager, and that manager will have a manager. And try to get to know, and just as your personality, as it's appropriate, not too forced. But people enjoy getting to know the younger people or the different newer people in the organization. But start to build relationships over and above and around your manager, not going over their head, but just build relationships outside of your manager, because you never know when your manager, no matter who they are, invariably is going to find something wrong. And if you've built some support outside of that, I've seen it and seen it and seen it. Invariably, there's someone else that steps up and says, well, I don't know, because you never know. That one manager may have some issue that's not really, and you never know when someone else within the organization at a manager level or might say, well, that doesn't sound like John that I've gotten to know.
Yeah, let's give him a second chance.
The John that I know works pretty hard, and maybe we're missing something here.
Yeah. Burton, that's a great point. We've talked about it a couple times recently, particularly with so many people working remote and using Zoom and all that kind of stuff. I've seen people just cripple their career by not going to headquarters.
Right.
And they're like, I can't go to headquarters. I'm too busy doing a good job. I'm like, I understand. But you don't go talk to Mr. Burton every now and then. He's going to wonder what the hell you're doing.
Some visibility.
Yeah.
And that was highly discussed during COVID in the financial industry, especially when, because it was all over CNBC, but J.P. Morgan, Jamie Dimon, who's very well regarded, they couldn't believe some of the young people that weren't coming into the office when they were allowed to.
Yeah.
And, it was kind of funny. Everyone's saying, well, nobody really wants to go to work, so why is anyone surprised? But the young people, and I just say young people, but the newer employees that went into the office, got some face time. They didn't have to be politicians, but it sure made a difference. And I remember the Jamie Dimons of the world saying, boy, some of our this level, they're really missing an interesting opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's a very important thing. And you don't have to, like I said, you don't have to be the best politician, but internal selling is important.
Yeah.
And visibility.
Totally agree. Okay, here's a couple of good ones. I know you're a big reader. What's your favorite
I'm
book?
not a reader. Unfortunately, I read research, and
Okay.
I read law. And so if you ask me some regrets, I would have read more earlier in my life.
Yeah.
I don't read enough of things that I'd like to read. I read a lot of research, used to read a lot of legal briefs and things like that. So at night, I really don't read a book.
Do you have a favorite book?
But I have a couple favorite
Okay.
books. The one that's a popular movie now, but I loved the book, was the Boys in the Boat.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, from a standpoint of teamwork, understanding what you're good at,
Yeah.
that is maybe a little different than what your teammate's good at,
Yeah.
and understanding where is my spot, because everyone's not the same.
Yeah.
Everyone's not as strong or as smart, and it just brings a lot of that together. Plus the entire Olympic thing.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the movie yet, but the book is.
I saw the movie. I hadn't read the book.
The book is great. It's got a lot of like all books versus movies. It's got a lot more detail about the individuals and their respective skill sets. So
Yeah.
it's a great team building book
Yeah.
for a sales team.
It's wonderful.
But I love that book.
That's a good one. Everyone should read
I
that
actually
book.
finished it.
Yeah. I finished the movie.
I've got a lot of books on my bedstand that,
I've got so many books.
that are about one. I've got the prologue read, but that's about it.
I have stacks at my desk, and I just keep buying more.
Yeah,
And I put them on
there's
the
some
stack.
great books out there. That Good to Great is a great
Yeah, I
book.
did read that one,
And
yeah.
Jack Welch books and Warren for investing. Any Warren Buffett,
Yeah.
The Buffett Way is a
Yeah.
really good one.
Yeah. Yeah. Buffett gives you exactly what to do.
He does.
Nobody wants to do it because it takes too long.
It takes some work and be select. I'm not a great investor. I turn it over to my clients.
Yeah.
Let professionals do
Yeah.
it. But it is fun to invest in small companies that your friends might have an involvement in,
Yeah.
that you think they're doing, or something about it. But Buffett does tell you how to do it.
Yeah. Just takes too long.
It does take time.
Favorite band?
I love music, so it's really hard. I can narrow it down to people like I like composers. I love composers / performers. I just have so much respect for that.
Yeah.
So like a Todd Rundgren, very different, but was a big influence on me. I try to play the piano a little bit, so I'd count Billy Joel and Elton John in that camp of influencing me. But more contemporary, along that line of composer and performer, in the country realm, Miranda Lambert is one of my absolute favorites.
Okay. Miranda Lambert.
Miranda Lambert writes great music. She performs great music.
Okay.
And most of a lot of musicians in that genre point to her and say she's like one of our
I'll have
best.
to check that out. All right. and
And she's a little crazy, which is kind
Well,
of
that's- yeah.
fun.
favorite word?
Awesome.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
I love that word, but I'm going to give you credit for one that I passed along with for probably 20 years. I've passed this along.
Yeah.
You were at DataStream running sales, and we went on a golf trip.
Yeah.
And you just had a sales meeting.
Yeah.
And you had given everyone a temporary
Tattoo,
tattoos
yeah.
with the Absolute bottle.
Yeah.
And you'd had it altered to say Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And they were little temporary tattoos. You gave all of those on the golf trip.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what the heck is this, John? He said, well, this is the one word that should come out of your mouth when a client asks you something.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I love that word as well. And I tell them,
That's certainly my favorite word.
Yeah.
I love it. It just used to frustrate me so when people would say, well, we might be able to, or we'll try, or
Yeah.
it'll be a couple of weeks. Like, absolutely, we'll do it. We're going
Right.
to take care of you.
yeah,
Period.
yeah.
No matter what it takes.
Well, if you don't mind me saying one thing I have learned that for young people
Sure.
along those lines,
Yeah.
because I've got a funny story with you we can share later, but I learned this as an attorney, and it's true now. Integrity is so important, and it takes a long time to build, and you lose it quickly. Honesty, sincerity, all of that. But a real challenge or a real temptation sometimes is to say you know the answer to something when you really don't. And it happened a lot in the legal. You get asked a legal opinion on the phone and be put on the spot. And I have it in our industry where we're asked an opinion about a stock or. And the only answer if you don't know the answer, the only answer is, I'm not sure, but I'll get back to you on it.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to get back to them.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be, service and responsiveness that
Yeah.
makes the difference. And then, so we try to kind of drill that into younger people, that you're not going to know all the answers, and
Yeah.
no one expects you to. But if you don't know it, don't fake it.
Yeah.
Just say, I'm not sure, and I will get the answer, and get it quickly.
Yeah.
We also laugh that you can't say that too many times.
Yeah.
But there'll be a time where you'll be tempted to bluff your way through it, and that is going to lead you down a bad path.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, is there anything you want to promote today?
I don't really have any. You asked me about that. I don't have anything to promote.
Okay.
I really don't. I just work hard. I
Work
won't
hard.
promote any service or anything. I'll say promote yourself.
Yeah.
I'll tell people, promote yourself, have confidence in yourself.
Yeah. Well, I'm so delighted we finally got you here.
I am too.
It's been great.
It's great to see you.
We'll talk a lot more tonight, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm
Dinner,
looking forward to that.
but,
looking forward to that.
It was great to catch up professionally, and been wonderful watching your career. And of course, I got to see you make that transition, because I just love the fact, I've told so many people this, that we have this super successful guy, he's done well, just figured out he's not completely happy.
Right.
And so do you want to just chug out the rest of your life and kind of not completely happy land, or do you want to make the hard choice and try to find something that's going to make you delighted? And you took that choice, and it worked out.
It worked out, and have some confidence in yourself, and
Yeah.
listen to ask for help.
Yeah.
Listen to other people. I will. Short anecdote on that was I'd mentioned the person who walked up to me and said, "You got that job I wanted."
Yeah.
That was pure timing.
Yeah.
But another person came up to me about the same time, and he said, "I want to let you know you're my favorite attorney in Atlanta." And I said, "Well, I'm not an attorney anymore." And he said, "I know you're not, but you weren't happy, and you did something about it."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "I have so many of my friends who are in whatever careers they are,
Yeah.
and they just want to complain about it all the time."
Yeah.
And I say, and this person was just being very nice to me, but he said, "You did something about it, where all these friends of mine are complaining every night over a beer, and they
Yeah.
won't do something about it." Now, it's a lot easier said than done, and all of that. But to your point, consider, something that'll make you happy.
Yeah. And one last thing, you just mentioned the complainers. A great rule for the Noob School people to live by is, under no circumstances the rest of your life ever complain about anything to anybody.
Nobody really wants to hear it.
They don't want to hear it. It doesn't do any good.
Right.
If you got a problem you're trying to solve, try to solve it. But
Right.
complaining does no good. So,
That's right.
but I'm delighted you came.
Thank you, John.
And
Appreciate you being
it
patient.
was a wonderful podcast. Better than Sam's.
I don't know. I wasn't dressed as well.
Don't tell him. Don't tell him.
Yeah,
Thank you,
right.
man.
John, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Okay.